Welcome to episode 101 of the Left Behind Game Club. This week we conclude our Kentucky Route Zero saga. You can find all things Left Behind Game Club at leftbehindgame.club, on Instagram at Left Behind Game Club, and on Twitter at Left Behind Club. If you like what you've heard through this Kentucky Route Zero saga, make sure to do two things. One, leave us a review on your podcasting platform of choice, and share it with a friend. If this is the first time that you've listened to a Kentucky Route Zero episode, you may want to stop this one, because it's the last one, and go back to the first episode, Kentucky Route Zero Act 1, before proceeding. Without further ado, the conclusion to our saga. Let's get right into it. You're listening to the Left Behind Game Club. Welcome to the Left Behind Game Club, our never-ending attempt to make sure that no game is left behind. I'm your host, Jacob McCourt, and today I have two friends with me. The first friend, you know him, you love him. His name is Michael Ruffalo.
I'm very excited to wrap up our discussion, but a very exciting and wonderfully interesting game.
Here to talk about a wonderfully interesting game with us on the podcast for the 10th time, Dr. Adam Iannetta. Adam, thanks for coming back.
I'm not crying. You're crying.
You know what? I don't know how I feel, but like I feel like relief. Like I am ready for this to be done, to put this back on the shelf and just kind of stare at it for once a year. I don't know how you guys feel.
It's very bittersweet because I've loved this game from start to finish, and it's one of those things where, you know, as soon as that final title screen came up at the end of Act 5, it just said the end. And a part of me thought, no, it can't be over. There has to be more, because I've enjoyed it that much. You don't want it to end, but all good things must come to an end. So, but that doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah, like I honestly, I feel like there are hundreds of stories that can be told in the world of Kentucky Route Zero. And Jacob, the vibe that I'm getting is you're Pharrell happy, you know, and Adam and I are over here. It's a little bittersweet symphony,
yeah,
you know?
Very good. Very good.
That's the vibe that I think we're hitting.
If you've gotten this far and you don't know what we're talking about, we are talking about the fifth interlude in the Kentucky Route Zero series that we've been doing for months now. If this is your first episode picking that up, you might want to go back to our Act 1 episode, start there, and then come back here. We'll be waiting for you when you're ready. But this is Interlude 5 of Kentucky Route Zero, this one called The Death of the Hired Man, again, developed by Cardboard Computer and published by Annapurna Interactive. And like all of the other interludes and acts, it starts and is entirely different than anything else in the series, right?
Holy cow.
Very different.
Yeah, it's got a little shelf with the Bible and a television and one of those cool little drinking bird toys that was in that episode of The Simpsons where Homer got too fat to work at the radiation plant.
Oh no, the corn! Paul Newman's gonna have me legs.
Man, I wish my job was so easy a drinking bird could do it. Yes.
Did you know that you can just press Y and increase your productivity?
This episode is like 20 minutes long, yeah?
Yeah, just about.
It is, guys, correct me. Feel free to hop in as I try and describe what this interlude is. It takes place entirely looking at a TV screen in a bar. I'm blanking on the name of Harry's bar.
The Lower Depths.
The Lower Depths, yes. It is sitting very clearly at the Lower Depths, and out of frame is Harry and Carrington having a conversation, and you basically get to control what's on TV and listen to the conversation, listen to the dialogue. There is the least amount of player agency, I think, out of any episode so far.
Best TV in a video game ever.
For real. You know what I like? This is going to sound really stupid, but I loved even the just like attention to detail that you could see a reflection in the TV screen and see that the booths were empty, that no one else was in this place. That is like a detail that I was not expecting and was so impressed to see.
I guess when I think of great televisions and video games, the only one I can really think of is Prey 2006. I think had some really good TV stuff. Deep Cut. Remember the first time Prey happened? Yeah.
Wow.
I think there was some good, cool TV stuff in there. And maybe In the Darkness, a game.
Maybe the best portrayal of Native Americans in games.
I think that's factual. And then I think The Darkness had some TV stuff, but this TV is even better. But please,
yes.
I want to stop being a dumb garbage man. Can you guys help me and give a little more context about this interlude?
Well, I don't know if we can quite fix that in this episode, but what we can do is I can continue to describe what happens in this episode, which is, to me, and I'd love to hear your interpretations, guys, but is essentially Carrington explaining to Harry, what happened with his play, while also kind of breaking the fourth wall. It is both a reinterpretation of The Death of a Hired Man by Robert Frost, while referencing it within it, and commentary on the game and making it. Or so I will try and to prove my thesis throughout the remainder of this episode. Thank you.
I think one thing we have to mention is who Carrington is. And because to me, having played this game up until this point, I had no idea who he was. And,
come on.
And in order for me to actually play this fifth and final interlude, I had to kind of figure it out on my own and sort of resort to Google and figure out, okay, who is Carrington and how do you find him in this game so I can play the fifth and final interlude? And apparently he's a character that you can meet right at the very beginning of Act 1, where as you're driving back and forth throughout the back roads of Kentucky, if you have the opportunity to go back to Equus Oils, there you see this. I guess the only way I can describe him is if George Washington Carver, the guy who invented peanut butter, all of a sudden just gave up his day job and decided to live out the rest of his life as a mountain man. While, that's basically what he looks like. And he's also carrying what appears to be this massive, 10 or 12 point set of elk antlers or something. And and you have a conversation with him, and apparently he knows, is it Joe from the gas station?
Yes, Joseph.
He knows Joseph, he knows Lula, and he's going on about working on this art installation, highly experimental theatrical production that he's calling The Death of a Hired Man. And what we find out in this interlude is sort of the aftermath of his failed attempt, because he goes on to explain how, the cast never showed up, there was no audience, the tech was a disaster, we couldn't find the proper set, so here I am in this black muddy water drowning my sorrows. So
I'm kind of amazed that we had never, I guess, talked about him or mentioned him previously, and that you had never seen him before.
Didn't even know he existed.
Because I remember him popping up in the oddest places, always carrying these antlers. I think the place that I last remember seeing him is at the Bureau of Reclaimed Spaces.
Where was he there?
To talk with Lula Chamberlain at her desk, I think. Or he might have been at the front desk, but I do remember him being there and thinking this is funny. This guy just keeps popping up, and he's always at places with the main cast of characters, right? The people who have set up the world that we are experiencing.
Yeah, so I went and looked back, and so we've already talked about how he's in Act 1. Mike just brought up the fact that he is in Act 2. He's also in Act 3. If you go back, he says he'll meet the group at the location that was suggested in Act 2, so either Equus Oils, Elkhorn Mine, or the storage facility. And then in Act 4, he also shows up again, but I don't exactly remember where, but he starts to allude that, he's doing an experimental stage production of Death of a Hired Man, and specifically talks about Frost and how he's used 3 sources of light on his main subject. So he's everywhere. Everywhere. And do you know that he was inspired by 2 real life people?
No.
Was one of them George Washington Carver?
No, one of them was James Beckworth. who is an American mountain man,
Playwright?
fur trader, and explorer.
No.
Okay.
And then the other one, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, but it's Waitley Carrington, who is a parapsychologist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there you go, James B. Carrington. You got it right, mountain man, but also parapsychologist that loves a good play.
Interesting.
How about
Okay, so the conversation, I guess we should just hop into it because there's not a lot of gameplay here. I think the gameplay. Correct me if you guys noticed anything different, because the gameplay actually surprised me. Is you can change the channel on the TV.
Yeah, I was
And
going to be
that's
like,
the only thing
hold
you
on.
can do.
Hold on. This game has so much gameplay. You can turn it from a race. At one point, you can change the channel, and there's
To
like a
fuzzy
soap
turkeys?
opera. There's fuzzy turkeys. There's a moon. There's just like those colored bars.
Did you
There's
see
a
the
screen waiting for what's her name to come and intercept the transmission?
There's a knife
Weaver?
show. Like, come
Yeah,
on.
did you see like the shopping channel
The
with just this
infomercial?
like ridiculous set of hunting knives?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I actually didn't realize that you could change the channel, and it was only when I dropped my controller and the screen changed that I was like, holy cow, what just happened? I was entranced watching a soap opera about, was it Mars?
How
and
to
the
Love a Red
Diamonds?
Moon.
Yeah. I was definitely enthralled in that soap opera, and after the fourth or fifth time that it looped and I dropped my controller, I realized I could flip channels and check out other programs. So yeah, anyways, that is the gameplay. I don't know, do we want to dig in a little deeper into like what is on each channel, or do you guys want to just get into the discussion of the script?
I'd say we just get into the discussion.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
I think that's the meat and potatoes here.
All right. Well,
Mike's
okay.
so excited.
Honestly, this one is, I think what I love about the game, and I think I've said this multiple times, is that this game kind of folds in on itself. There are layers and layers and layers, and it's not only layers of references that you need to pull from the real world, but also references within the world that the game sets up. And it makes it really, really cool. So, anyway, the conversation essentially is between Harry and Carrington, and we've kind of established this. And Carrington, it seems like he's kind of following the script of The Death of the Hired Man, talking about some boy who's come in and needs to work, and there are lines that are ripped straight from the poem itself. Be gentle, or be kind to him.
When am I ever not kind?
When am I ever not kind? Exactly. And there are a bunch of these references, and it's a conversation with Harry not making any money, continuing to not make money, but discussing whether he'll be able to pay a wage or not, and what he'll do with this person. And the conversation veers and meanders, and we find that Emily is also sitting at the bar, and she's talking with Carrington, and Carrington explains in this episode or interlude again that he has put on a play at Equus Oils where no one attended, and his actors didn't show up, of The Death of a Hired Man. And to me, this was one of the big kind of moments of like, aha, the game that we have been playing is a version of The Death of the Hired Man, and Conway is the hired man. And the story that we've seen is essentially the death of Conway. And all of these different themes throughout the game are dropped and revisited in this brief conversation between Harry, Carrington, and Emily. So I mean, I've honestly, guys, I feel like I could rant for days about this, but I feel like this is the opportune and polite moment in conversation to allow you to get a word in edgewise.
Well, I think, and you probably already touched on this, Michael, but the fact that, at this point, Carrington is just so disheartened by the fact that his grand oeuvre, his production of Death of a Hired Man.
That pronunciation.
Well, vocal major, so, IPA, it's
Right.
kind of my thing.
Right.
But the fact that, you know, his grand work couldn't come to fruition and he's so disheartened by it, but the fact that within this interlude the conversation starts drawing directly from the work is interesting, because it's almost as if he's literally living inside of his own masterpiece at this point, literally quoting lines from the show, having the same conversations that they would, and even there's the grand riddle or the grand question that keeps arising between the different characters, and I
love that.
I'm trying to remember what it was. It was
what is the definition of home?
Yeah, home is where you have been taken in, and Emily actually says, "Oh, you know, I think I understand the answer to your riddle." And he says, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, it's clearly a riddle. It means a grave. It's where you go to die, because, you know, in death is the only place where you have to be taken in."
That was literally so I have the poem up and I highlighted that specific phrase, because all I could think of, if you go back to Act 4 and how, again, I was a dumb garbage boy and didn't realize that Conway literally was being taken to his death. That's all I could think of, is how the Hard Time Boys.
Forgot about that.
The Hard Time Boys, and it'll always stick with me because I didn't realize what was actually happening. I'm like, ooh, a cat, and really he's being taken away to his death. I'm like, ooh, shiny thing over there. But that's all I can think of, that one line of home is the place where, when you have to go there, they have to take you in. So, like, I think I brought up the River Styx on a past episode. The Hard Time Boys, as we called them, like, to me, represent death. And, like, that line in the poem stuck with me so hard. Were there any other either lines that were delivered by one of the characters in the bar, or one of the lines from Robert Frost's poem that really stuck with you and made you think of a specific thing that happened in the game?
You know, I have been struggling to find the script for this interlude and episode that I've been able to find for the others, because there were moments reading through it that struck me as the developers kind of breaking the fourth wall, that the people didn't show up and the time wasn't there, and it all changed on us along the way. To me, that kind of felt like the developers talking about, people playing this game, the act of making this game likely changed it along the way, and all of the ways that tends to happen in a living, breathing, piece of art.
Yeah, because this actually this is being recorded in 2020. The game, the final interlude, came out in January of 2020. So that's maybe why the script isn't available. But, like, I can't imagine what it was like, for their oeuvre to take,
Well done.
I didn't do it great. It took them essentially 8 years to put together. So that breaking the fourth wall, about, I think what was the line? There was a line in there about, There was a line in there that I thought was like, are they talking about how difficult this project was to get going? Hold on.
Yes.
I would not doubt for a minute that is not a coincidence.
Yeah. Well, I love not only all of the ways that it seems like the developers are breaking the fourth wall and telling us a bit about their experience creating the game that we are experiencing, but I love that in all of this, we've at least personally, I've gotten the sense from you guys as well that we are just kind of along for the ride, that we didn't quite know exactly where it was going to go, that we could have seen all of the pieces of the puzzle and still not been able to know what the picture was and how to put it together, that there was just so much there and that it was so complicated. But knowing that Carrington at the beginning gives us that foreshadowing of he's trying to put on an experimental play of the death of a hired man, and knowing that, that was set up right at the beginning, the death of Conway should not have come as a surprise. Some of the twists and turns, I think, should have been a little bit more predictable. And yet, I love that at the very last minute, at the very end, it takes all of these details that we had an experience and puts them into focus in a way that allows us to fill in the picture.
The specific line I was talking about is, he's worn out, he's asleep beside the stove. When I came up from Rose, I found him here. So, like, is that about Conway? Is that about the developers putting out this giant oeuvre? So, on your point, Mike, I think a lot, you know, as our resident dumb garbage boy, I think that a lot of this went over my head. But I'm almost selfishly glad to hear that, like, my well-read counterparts are even finding parts that they didn't necessarily see coming or even really know about until, you know, after they played it and they had time to think about it.
I didn't even know this interlude existed until you mentioned it on a previous episode. Oh, by the way, there's another interlude, and I had to try and figure out, how do I unlock this? Up until now, everything's just been there. So the other really interesting thing is, they talk about how, you know, the Robert Frost poem, and when I went to look it up, I was kind of anticipating a, you know, sort of your typical high school poem. There once was a man from Peru who dreamed he was eating his shoe, kind of thing, like 5 to 15 lines long. But it's actually, I mean, it took me about maybe 7 to 10 minutes to read, and it doesn't read like a normal poem with, you know, some sort of meter and rhyming couplets. It to me, it reads more just like a short story or a dialogue between 2 or 3 characters. So it's really interesting just to see. I for one am not familiar with Robert Frost or his poetry, but it's really interesting to see just how many nods to, you know, literature, movies, poetry, art, how much is just referenced within this beautiful piece of work.
The final line that really struck me in the script, I know we weren't able to kind of find a beat-by-beat script, but the last line that really hit me was the thing I said before, you know, that what's the place where when you have to go, they have to take you in? Carrington says the answer is home, and Emily says, no, it's a grave. So, like, that in itself kind of confirms what we're saying. But one other thing that I wanted to talk about in the actual, on the shelf, I don't know if you guys noticed or took anything of it. I seem to take things from the simplest things in this game. But there was a Bible, and on top of the Bible, there's like a puzzle book and a deck of cards. And I don't know if you guys took anything from that or just said, like,
it's a game and it's a puzzle.
Yeah. Life is full of chance. Life is like it's like a, not luck, but like you kind of roll the dice when you go through this life.
You rolled the dice and not the deck of cards.
That's it.
Absolutely. But do you keep the glowing green dice at the very beginning of Equus?
Yes, exactly.
The only puzzle in the entire game, also.
We never did find out what those dice are for.
Nope.
Well, did you guys
it was a main menu item.
But you actually get the chance in Act 5 when you meet up with Ben, Bob, and Emily. They're sitting at a table at one point. And they're saying, "Oh, we want to play this game, but we don't have the dice." And
Stop it!
You're given the option as Shannon to reach into your coat pocket, which is Conway's, and give them the dice. But that's literally the end of it. There's a reference at one point to the Pueblo de Nada, the people of nothing, and how they follow this, I can't remember her name, I think she's referred to as the seer, almost like a shaman sort of being, and she's sort of like the all-powerful nomad of their tribe, and they treat their nomadic culture almost like a game, and so I'm wondering if that plays any reference to the dice rolling, and who knows.
Yeah. I love that the conversation that they have at the bar picks up all of the themes that we had been talking about throughout: debt, responsibility, all of those things all coming together. I did not pick up on the deck of cards and the puzzle. I was, again, too entranced in the soap opera and the wonderful music. I was into it, and I kept flipping channels and getting really annoyed when I was on static, trying to find the right thing. But this, it's so strange that this gave me a better sense of closure than Act 5 did itself. Act 5 seems to have wrapped up the story, and this seems to have explained more of it to me. or at least tied some of those details together. I feel less like I'm Charlie, like tying string on thumbtacks in the wall with a big Pepe Sylvia in the middle, and I feel like more of those strings are now like in the correct spot. Like I've got more of it actually figured out.
So I think this is a great point in the episode to, start to get near the finish. But one thing I want to do before we wrap up is I want for y'all to give your recommendations about games, books, music that you would recommend that made you feel like the way Kentucky Route Zero made you feel in a segment that we call the Recommendation Machine. The Recommendation Machine. So who wants to go first and give any recommendations they have for media that may cop the same feeling that Kentucky Route Zero does?
Well, since you've put us on the spot and surprised us, Jacob,
surprise!
I think it's only fair that you go first.
Okay. So the one thing that I want to recommend, again, because I'm a garbage, what am I? A dumb garbage boy. That's it.
Dumb garbage boy raccoon person.
That's me. I'm gonna stick to the realm of games, and a game that kind of does the magical realism thing a little bit would be What Remains of Edith Finch, which is a game, another one published by Annapurna Interactive. Now, it doesn't have the same like mystery elements that this game does, but I think that it does a lot of surrealist stuff that anyone that plays this game would appreciate. But if you're looking for something a little bit weirder, I think I would probably go to something that Remedy would have developed and go to something like Alan Wake, as not gameplay entirely different, but like build some of the strange world building stuff in the game. So there's two for me: What Remains of Edith Finch and Alan Wake. Who wants to go next?
Okay, I'll go. We'll give Adam some time to gesticulate. Okay, a game, I will say 30 Flights of Loving.
Oh yeah.
A film, anything out of David Lynch's canon, but I think more particularly Twin Peaks. It's just got that fun, kind of weird, crazy energy to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then 30 Flights of Loving, Twin Peaks, a book, I'd say any of, I would go Gravity's Rainbow. Gravity's Rainbow just seems to hit the right spot. If you really love the world folding in on each other and having insane references to pull from, I'd say Infinite Jest by David Foster Wallace. And then if I'm thinking an album, that's tough. I would, it's definitely like dream wavy. Anything that Ben Babbitt's done ever.
Yeah.
The soundtrack to Oxenfree is pretty great too, from Scientific.
Yes,
that's a good one. So for me, I've mentioned it several times on this show, point and click adventures have never really been my thing. And so trying to think of something remotely close to that genre, I mean, the only thing I'm drawing at this point is that, do you guys remember homestarrunner.com? And there's
of course.
There's that horrible, like, oh, ye find ye self in yonder dungeon, ye see ye flask. But I'm definitely not going to recommend that. But sort of accidentally, I was scrolling through Twitter and I found it's a newer game that's come out. It's called Cross the Grooves, and it's referred to as an interactive novel, which kind of struck me as something very, very similar to what we've experienced here, because, while it is referred to as a point and click adventure game, you're really not doing the token things like fighting monsters or defeating villains or things like that. You're essentially just investigating and learning more about these characters just by observation and sort of clicking and choosing the dialogue that you want to know more about them. And so this game, Across the Grooves, is very similar in that context, and it is noted as having a very magic, realist, surrealist perspective, and it deals with themes of time travel and really just uncovering more about relationships rather than getting from point A to point B.
This game looks dope.
It's absolutely beautiful, the art style. It's got a very sort of DC Comics watercolor art style to it, and I think they only have 2 other games out right now, and I don't really know anything about this company, but they all have a very similar watercolor art style to them, and it's gorgeous, and I'm very interested in looking more into it. And I mean, as I've mentioned before, this game has absolutely converted me from, sort of staying away from point-and-click adventures, so I'm very much open to looking more into them, and I think I might give Grim Fandango a try next.
Ooh, nice.
Great choice.
The developer...
I honestly, guys, I cannot wait until the script of this game is linked to me somewhere or I find it, because I feel like there's so much more of this interlude or episode that, can be teased out of it that I don't have the script in front of me, and I feel like I'm missing out on bits, but still have like a sense of closure.
Well, I mean, what I want to do now is I want to go and watch YouTube videos, and I want to read like essays, and I want to just read like media interviews of Cardboard Computer, because even the small stuff. So I read, I don't know whose video I watched, but I was watching a video. I think it was actually Rock Paper Shotgun did a little essay about it, and one thing that really struck me is that they were talking about Xanadu, and how with Xanadu, it only worked because the mold that was in that like area that Xanadu was in created a perfect neural network for Xanadu to be able to work. It's like the littlest things, and you just go, what the hell? How did they? So that's what I want to do next. Just watch a whole bunch of things and have people tell me what we got wrong, and just ruminate about this game for a little while longer, and then put it away forever.
As a slight aside, have you guys ever seen those models of mold helping city planners figure out how to put roadways and subways and things like that? No. It's amazing. They just model out all of the buildings in a city and have mold path the most efficient route to connecting. It's super cool. It's super interesting.
That's
Definitely
crazy.
take a look at it later. Yeah. Mold is wild. But yeah, I feel like, again, there's just so much more to dig into here. And I think on some level, I'll always feel that way about this game. And for me personally, it's a game that I would recommend, or I don't want to get into the semantic arguments about whether this is a game or not, because it's not worthwhile.
It's not a game.
Yeah, like whatever. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
You're entitled
to
your
matter.
opinion.
Go away.
Yeah. I don't care. But I'm going to call it a game. And I would recommend this to just about anyone, like literally just about anyone, just to see what their reaction to it is. Like, I've already recommended it to Mo very stealthily a couple times. He's like, yeah, I looked at it and was like, I don't know, it's not my type of game. I'm like, yeah, but like just maybe play an episode, just like check it out. And I honestly do feel like this is, in the strangest way possible, there's a huge audience of people out there who never play games, who games are really daunting for, who the language and design of games has gone past them. And I feel like this is actually accessible enough, as weird as this is, to get a lot of people into it. And it's such a weird story that grips you, that I think a lot of serialized TV can do, that I feel like this might actually be a good gateway drug for a lot of people into gaming.
The one thing that I've really taken away from this game is just how much I find it relates to my own research from my schoolwork, where it's taking something, a preconceived art form or genre of some sort of media, and presenting it in a new form to make it that much more accessible. And that was sort of the touchstone of my research, which was taking 200-year-old music that was, up until that point, it was set in stone. There's only one way to perform it, and it's not very accessible to, people our age today, because it just looks very stale and boring, and trying to take it and reinvent it and perform it in new ways to make it that much more accessible. And seeing that with this game, it is in no way, I've never played a game quite like this before, and I think that's what makes it, that is one of its strongest assets, to being that much more accessible. I've explained it to my wife, who is not a gamer in any way, shape, or form, but I've talked to her about the story and the characters, and I showed her the final musical number at the end of Act 5, and she said, this is beautiful. I can't believe this is a video game. And I thought to myself, if this were a way to get my wife into video games, this would be the only way in, because there's something there that pulls you in and continues for you to want more of it. And I love the fact that, I mean, the fact that we call it a video game is merely because it's on video game consoles. That's it. I mean, you could have translated this into a book. You could have translated this into a TV series, which I really hope they do someday. But it really, it's, as soon as you put a label on something, you kind of, I don't want to say you pigeonhole it. And so it gives off a negative connotation. And so I hope that people, gamers and non-gamers alike, will really appreciate this for what it is. Whatever it is. Yeah,
and just to bounce off that, I know we've talked in past acts and interludes about how they've had interactive displays and they've done like play versions of some of these acts and interludes. I think that, you know, despite me thinking it's not a game, I don't want to get caught in the semantics of is it or is it not, because Cardboard Computer has proven that like this thing can cross mediums without issue. Mike, 100%. You were going to say something?
No. I was going to make a comment that I actually think what they've done with this game, I don't think it would translate to other medium as well as it does to gaming, or as it does to like interactive entertainment. But nonetheless, I actually think it's a great story that would translate well to TV. But I think there's something special about the way that it's done in a game that couldn't be replicated in other places.
To wrap up, just one more thing. Maybe share one of your favorite memories or the thing that you're going to remember. And again, I'm springing this on you so I can go first. I just want to live in the rum colony. Like I just want to, you know, we've been stuck in the house for a very long time. And I just want to hear the Beach Boys play Kokomo, and I want like a delicious rum drink, and I just want to sit on that very, very dark beach and listen to some really cool tunes. So yeah, that's one setting that I'm definitely going to remember. And then obviously the thing that I didn't realize, that Conway was being taken to his death, that I'll remember, but for different reasons entirely. I cheated. There's two. You guys have time to think.
It's very easy for me. The moment that I will always remember and is the most standout in this game for me is when Junebug literally tears the roof off the joint with her wonderful ballad. It's just, it's too perfect.
And there's just so many, but I think, and I'm kind of torn between two, and it's literally the very beginning and the very end. You know, the game starts with this amazing scene with this absolutely insane looking gas station with this giant bust of a horse. I mean, from that point, you know, okay, this is going to be a really interesting adventure wherever it takes you. And just the very end, that song sung by Emily, and then seeing not just the people around her from the town joining in song, but also seeing the shadows of the people that have lived there before join in as they honor the life and death of these two horses, the neighbors, as they're called. It's such a powerful moment, and I don't know if I've ever cried in a video game, but seeing that right there at the very end, it was almost like a coming home for me to see how, you know, you've traveled all these miles across Kentucky and under Kentucky and over Kentucky, but to wind up here among these friends and neighbors that, you know, you can call your own, and all know that, you know, we're all going the same way, and life will continue on is just so beautiful and touching. It doesn't necessarily mean that the story is over. It just means that this part of the story is over.
Here and there along the echo.
Do you have a snake, Michael?
If a snake's limp in your wrist, drop it.
Now, what did you name your snake?
You know what else is beautiful, much like this video game? Adam, what you did at the end of the last episode. Wow, what a voice.
Yeah, holy cow.
You guys are very kind. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, please.
That's amazing.
It's a pleasure.
If anyone listening has not yet heard the Adam's rendition of the song in the last episode, highly, highly, highly recommend going back and taking a listen to that.
If people want to find that song and find everything you do on the internet, Adam, where's the best places that they can do that?
The best places to find me online, number one is just my website, adamiannetta.ca. It's my professional profile for my work as a singer, as well as my research. But just as well, I'm on social media on Facebook and Twitter, and those sites just sort of piggyback all of my research and work that I do on my website. And you can find me at the user tag DMA Iannetta. I was originally AD Iannetta, but I've sort of changed to consolidate everything
You've
to
evolved.
the same user tag.
Thanks again for coming on to 10 episodes of the Left Behind Game Club. We really, 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 really appreciated having you.
Gentlemen, it has been an honor playing with you. No, but in all seriousness, I'm as passionate as I am about music, I am equally passionate about video games, and just as well equally passionate about talking about great video games with great people like yourselves. And I mentioned this before we started recording. This has been a bucket list item for me, so thank you guys for giving me this opportunity. And I wish you all the best and continued success with the show. Keep up what you're doing, because it's great.
Just make sure that you don't kick the bucket like Conway does, because we might want to have you on future shows, so please don't do that.
Knock on wood.
Michael, if people want to have fun with us,
I'm not for sale, Jacob. I don't know what your price is, but
I was just gonna ask about the Discord. That's all.
Okay, yeah. So we have already seen many people come to the Discord and drop their theories and connections. I've also had many people reach out to me on Twitter with their theories and bits that we have not picked up on along the way, which really appreciate. But I think everyone would appreciate in the Discord if you dropped it in the Discord. You can find our Discord link at leftbehindgame.club. There's a big fat red button in the middle. If you click it, it'll take you right in. It's very easy to set up an account. We have a very welcoming community who's always excited to talk about what they're playing, what good deals they're getting, the latest episode of the show. For me, it's been great to talk about Kentucky Route Zero because there's always more to be said, and there's always new things to see and hear and get perspective on. So love it there. You can also find me on other places online, most social places, at RuffaloM. And my website, michaelruffalo.com.
Is it done?
Jacob.
Is your website
It's not done yet, okay? It might be. Who knows? We'll see. But it's always under construction. I'm working on it, okay?
Yeah, it's a fun joke.
Jacob, where can the people find you
They
at?
can find me on the internet at Jacob McCord on all major social media platforms. You can also find me on YouTube because I make YouTube videos. Find that at youtube.com/Jacob McCord. Michael, please wrap up this wonderful 10-part series with the thing that you always tell people.
And that, my friends, is one less game left behind.